Okay, we're in the shade now. There is no reason in the world to transplant in the sun unless you have to. And in this case, it's better for the plants not to. So, what I have here is I have my very cool Dixie cups that have been turned into flower pots. And I have a bunch of roots. As I said before, I think I'll save this one for us. I'm gonna stick that guy in that water. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take individual branches like this. Now this one has got, this is not a great example. Let's see if I can find a better example. Okay, we have the arrow, which we want to go away. So it goes in the trash. And okay, so I have a slightly wilted from sitting in the sun lavender plant with some roots. I'm going to cut off this extra stem because it doesn't need to be supporting that stem. It needs to conserve its energy. And I suppose I could actually trim off this, but I'm not going to. And I'm going to take some soil. I have some soil left over from a potato planting project I did the other day. And I'm just going to take one of our fancy flower pots. Do that. Stick this guy in here. Now I don't have to worry about, I actually think I'll peel off this little shoot. It's kind of like tomatoes. You don't want to leave too much greenery on them. So I'm going to stick all of this down in here. And put some dirt in it, and that's all it is. I'm going to water these good, and they'll sit in the shade for at least a couple of days, probably more, until they've had time to readjust and recoup a little bit. And I'm just going to continue this until I either run out of cups or run out of seedlings here, because these will become seedlings. I'm going to take all of this extra stuff off here. And you have to be kind of harsh sometimes and take off as much as you dare, I guess is the best way to put it. Because you're better off starting with just a little bit. And because these root really easily, having roots on them to start with should make this a pretty reliable project. When I realized that the branches had rooted down in there, my first thought was, oh dear, now what am I going to do with all this? And then my second thought was, whew, the garden club. I can donate to them. So we should have some happy people, because there were some people last week talking about growing lavender. One of the ladies wants to grow a lavender farm. They're a Mediterranean plant. They're, I don't know that I would say low water use, but low in comparison to a lot of other things. It's nice for it to have a little bit of vegetation to grab some of those solar rays and turn them into energy, but not so much that it can't deal with the volume of vegetation. It'll just die. A lot of the people in the garden club are very new at this. So I'd like to make these as foolproof as possible so that people have the best chance of actually having success. Now, I have gotten through those. So it's time to switch to my next batch. I'm almost out of these cups. Honest to gosh, I thought I'd never get rid of them. I used a bunch, some of my old flower pots in the greenhouse have died of old age. Eventually they break down from UV and stuff, and I had a bunch of them die last year, and I try and be very careful with them. I'm not rough at all, but eventually they die anyway. You're trying to get the plants out, and crunch, something breaks. And sometimes they just break too badly to be able to be salvageable. big branch. Without thinking about it, I'm going to lop all that off. I'm going to cut these into 2 pieces. Again, I don't want too much heavy vegetation or too much random rootstock. Okay. It's very convenient that I had all this soil mixed up. I would have normally just used probably some of the potting soil that I have sitting around, but this was mixed up to do potatoes. One more, and then I'll have enough basic group. So I say I want to have a dozen. Then I'll have to take a look at what's left, because I'm debating. The lavender likes more sun than it gets on this side of the house. This area gets a lot of brightness, but it never is in direct sun because this is the north side of the house. So because we are such a bright environment, even plants that normally really like sun sometimes do better in the shade here. But there's doing better in the shade slightly and then really loving it. So I planted, when I originally started, and I don't know if you can see it in this shot here, down here past the violas right by the kitchen door, there's another lavender plant. And that lavender plant and the 6-foot in diameter lavender plant out in the yard were planted at the same time. Okay, this is an excellent example. Root goes there, it's sitting on top of the soil. I'm going to pack in the soil, and this is not a plant that is sensitive to getting soil up on the branches. I wouldn't bury it the way I would a tomato plant, but still, it's not going to be one of those plants that's going to instantly die on you. All right, that's it. I'm going to water these, and then these guys. Okay. Probably leave this one intact. I see a new plant or two in my future. I just need to decide where. I'm thinking I may plant one right down at the end of this bed there. There's a kind of a no man's land where nothing has grown particularly well. It's a little hot and sunny over there. Right now it's kind of in that transition stage where it's going from early spring mostly in the shade to summertime mostly in the sun, sort of a thing. I'm thinking that this is a great solution. So I think I'll put one there, and I've got 2 more over here. This is going to take some thinking. What are you doing, Miss Isa? She says, I'm looking for another lizard. You spoiled my lizard fight before you took it away. So, time to water these guys in. I'm going to flood them in to really make sure that they're soaked well. Then it'll drain right out the bottom, and they will not drown. That's a good thing. Okay, well, I hope this gives everybody an idea of how you can have help from a kitty and a doggy when you're trying to transplant your lavender. And as you can see, it's really not a hard thing. Lavender, even if you just get a pot of it at the garden center or something like that, there's usually some little edges to it that kind of naturally tend to fall off. It's easy to start from little root cuttings and all kinds of things. And it's such a beautiful plant. Relatively water conservative, grows to be huge. It's not, if you're going to grow in a small space, you need to check the kind of variety you have. These will grow huge. I have a 6-foot diameter plant. You also need to pay attention to what kind of lavender you're getting. We are in a planting zone, and it depends on who you talk to, but some people say we're 7B. At any rate, Our lowest temperature is usually about -5 Fahrenheit, but there are winters when it's colder than that. And this plant has been through winters when it was colder than that. There are lavenders that are not frost hardy, and you just need to make sure you get a hardy lavender. I'll look up the variety that this is. I don't remember the name of it, but it's very commonly available, and all the seed catalogs have it. So make sure you check to see what you need in your area. There are other plants that look like lavender. There's a Russian sage that looks similar to lavender and does really, really well down places like the Phoenix area. They grow it as landscape plants all the time down there. So if you're just looking for the look, you might go with a Russian sage instead of this. But if you're looking for lavender, then you just need to check to see what you need for your area. But I hope this encourages you, and we'll see you next time. Okay, Isa, your help.